Howdy, my totally tubular sharkaholics, and we're back for another Jaws video. Today's video is still not this movie. Now it is Jaws 3D, or Jaws 3, or whatever. And, well, I've heard some really interesting things about this movie, and we'll see how true they are. Whoa! That's going in the video. So Jaws 3 takes place after Jaws 1 and 2, I guess. There is no connection to Jaws 1 and 2 in this movie at all. One of the characters has the last name of Brody, but I don't think there's any real connection to Jaws 1 and 2, and it certainly doesn't feel like it if there is. The movie takes place in Florida at SeaWorld, and pretty much the whole movie revolves around SeaWorld. In fact, it's to the point that I would say this movie was an advertisement for me to go to SeaWorld. However, after seeing this movie, there's no way in hell I ever want to go to SeaWorld, especially in Florida. The movie is essentially about Jaws sneaking into SeaWorld somehow, and I guess nobody notices, and then Jaws wreaks havoc on SeaWorld. There's a bunch of other little side plots here and there and some other characters, but it doesn't honestly mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Every subplot that is put into this movie is pretty much ignored by the end of it for the story of Jaws attacking the people at SeaWorld. And you know, I gotta say, this plot, it's pretty bad. It's not just pretty bad, it's really bad. Like, wow, this plot is terrible. This is really not good at all. They completely just ditched everything from the first two Jaws movies to give us a very forgettable, generic, and ultimately boring plot. The characters are about as exciting as my morning routine. They do nothing interesting whatsoever throughout the movie. Their personalities are about as interesting as a plank of wood. They are generic, boring, uninspired, uninteresting, dull. Do I need to go down the list of negative connotations for these characters? Like, they're all bad. There's not a single, even half decent character in the movie. Nobody is even okay. It's just all around bad. The characters that they try to make likable are just as unlikable as the rest of the cast, and the characters that are supposed to be unlikable, I couldn't care less what happens to them. I didn't even care if they got attacked by the shark, which is definitely not the feeling you're supposed to have when watching a movie like this. Ultimately, the plot, the characters, the motivations, the little details, all of that is very shallow, it's very bland, it's very bloated, it's too long, it goes on forever, it's boring. There's really just nothing to say here. Like, it sucks. Pure and simple. I could not believe I was watching a Jaws movie when watching this, because I was like, wow, this is boring as shit. This is as boring as Cruel Jaws, and that wasn't even an official Jaws movie. This is nothing like the other Jaws movies at all. This is the furthest departure from all of them. And by the end of it, I really just wanted the movie to end. It was not engaging in the slightest, and I could not believe how dull it was. Like, if I had found a sword that was like 1,000 years old and had never been sharpened, it would have been sharper than this movie. Like, that dull. Like, holy shit. And you know, one of the reasons that it's so dull is the shark. Jaws in this movie sucks. Like, big time. Jaws is not in the movie very much, like just straight up. Maybe a couple minutes throughout the movie and that's it. The pacing is all kinds of off. The shark screen time, there barely is any shark screen time. The first hour of the movie has barely anything to speak of. The last like 10 minutes, yeah, there's a little bit here and there, but it just does not, it's not well paced. It just left me waiting and waiting and waiting. Like, come on, where is any sharks in this movie? Like, shit, and nothing happens. Nothing happens most of the time, and that's just a damn shame. When the shark does finally show up, when Jaws does show up, it's not very good either. I know the quality of this video isn't exactly the best, but I just blame a bad stream I had to watch Jaws 3, but like, the shark looks like shit. It looks nowhere near as good as it did in the first two, which looked amazing for the time, and this just looks like it's a bad recreation of it. Like, it just doesn't look as authentic or good as it did in the first two movies. And then, like, half the time it's CGI. Now, CGI was in a very primitive state when this movie came out. It was very basic, and I'm not going to harp too much on it. I'm just going to say that in 2021, this is laughably bad, and I could have better CGI if I made a shark movie. a big gimmick and selling point of this movie was the fact that it was in 3D. Now, this movie came out like 15 years before I was even conceived. I'm obviously not watching it in 3D. I don't have that aspect. I can say what's supposed to be in 3D, though, looks very funny nowadays, and it's just laughably bad. But I'm not going to criticize the movie too much on that. What I can criticize the movie on is the kills by Jaws, or really the lack thereof. The kills in this movie are terrible, like really bad. The worst of the whole series, like by a landslide. There's like 2 or 3 in the movie, and then they're not even good. Not only do they look like crap, because the shark looks like crap, there's really no gore here. Part of them doesn't even make any sense, like this one where I guess the guy just falls into the shark, and then Jaws just kind of has him hanging out in his mouth. Like, what? And any other kills in this movie are just incredibly dull. I was like, there's just like nothing here. There's like barely anything to even comment on. There's one scene where Jaws attacks all these people in this giant lake. It's some big show that SeaWorld does or whatever, and I was expecting a ton of people to die here, and I was like, yes, finally something good is going to happen. The movie's going to get exciting, it's going to get engaging, people are going to die, they're going to scream, it's going to be all great, it's going to be gory. What happens? Jaws doesn't kill a single fucking person. Jaws nibbles on someone's leg, not even takes the leg off, and that's it. And I was like, are you kidding me? What is this shit? This sucks. Nothing happens. Jaws doesn't attack like a ton of people like she should, and it's just like, okay, so they just totally blew it here and just destroyed my expectations of this being even half redeemable. It's just terrible, and it honestly pissed me off. I was mad watching this. I was like, are you kidding me? This is all they had? Really? Did they even watch the first 2 movies? These are some of the worst shark kills I've ever seen in a movie. They're terrible. I was like, oh my god, this is horrible. Not in a like, oh, it's so bad that it's good, this is funny. No, this just fucking sucks. End of story. And you know what? Same thing goes for the acting. The acting is considerably worse than the first 2 movies by like a considerable margin. Everyone is so bad. Nobody's even half decent. Nobody's bleh or meh. No, it's ugh. This is bad. This is really bad. This is like terrible 80s acting that wouldn't even pass in the 80s, like let alone nowadays. There is basically no emotion displayed. It's not good. It's not gripping. It's not believable. It's not engaging. It's nothing. It sucks. It's all bad. I really didn't like any of the characters. I thought all their acting sucked. The dialogue is basic as hell. There's really nothing to go off of here. It's just not good. It just isn't good. And we're going to wrap this up because talking about this movie anymore is just pissing me off. This is one of the worst shark movies I've ever seen. This is the worst of the main Jaws movies. And I think it's just an abomination in general. It was unbelievably boring with terrible characters, a worse plot, a stupid shark, and it just made me feeling like I wasted my time after I watched the movie. I genuinely feel like, what a waste of time. Like, I didn't watch this movie for all these years, and I finally watch it, and it's this crap. No. I honestly should have just worked that overtime. It would have been a better time waster than this. I'm done with this movie. It sucks. Do not recommend. And it's pretty obvious what it gets on the shark scale. 1 out of 5 on the shark scale. It is shark shit. That's all I really have to say about this movie. I'm pretty mad now. I'm pretty heated. And I need to go punch a wall and drink some Monster Energy like a true Kyle. So, I'll see everyone later. Have a good night.